Want to sharpen your game? Join the DFM Coaching Patreon for exclusive technique breakdowns and mindset training. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing belts as academic milestones. I keep seeing these comments about, like, do belts matter? They don't matter. Do stripes matter? And it's conversation back and forth, belts versus skill level and so on. My personal belief is belts are super important in a structure where you want to keep people motivated. I personally, like, if I was doing an art that didn't have a belt, I don't know how motivated I would have been throughout the 10, 15-year journey that I had to be on. Like, it's a difficult question. We can argue, some of us can say, oh, yeah, I would have still went through the grind and I loved it. I love Jiu-Jitsu as much as anyone else. I genuinely love the art. I love the puzzle. I love it all. So there's a strong possibility that I would have maintained regardless. But there were some really dark days where a stripe and a belt really did motivate many of us to get through those difficult moments. So sometimes it's not a bad thing. I think where we fall short is when we start looking at belts as if they are necessarily skilled measurements, in that, oh, a blue belt's always going to beat a white belt. A purple belt's always going to beat the white belt and the blue belt. The brown belt's going to beat all three of those, and so on and so on. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And then on top of that, you're also gauging someone who's in their 20s versus someone who's in their 40s and 50s. And how do you gauge that and that skill level and that development and the way they approach the game? So belts aren't a complete measurement of whether someone can beat someone else. Because on top of all of that, you also have the pros versus the quote-unquote hobbyists. And how do you measure both of those types of personalities? And someone who's really good at, for example, basketball, and they're great within the city, they're great within the county, whatever, but they're not on the NBA level, and there's a big chasm there. But it doesn't mean that they're not skilled or even to some degree elite. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to gauge. It's hard to measure what these things are really supposed to be. I tend to look at belts more in the way of, like, academic milestones. There are things that we get, like an associate's degree, undergrad/master's, PhD. Like, the depth of knowledge between those belts is kind of on that level. And I know I'm probably being very generalized, but I think that's sort of the way we should really look at it. It's a position in your life educationally that you've attained. It means that you understand the material to that degree. No one's going to say, and I know it's going to sound a little ridiculous, the associate's degree can beat up another associate's degree, or that the undergrad/master's can beat up the person with associate's degree, or that they're more intelligent. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. It doesn't mean that they're more intelligent, since we're on a more academic level. It just means that they're further along in the development. And then you have people who cruise through some of this shit. You have geniuses that get their degrees far sooner than everybody else. And they're just on a different level of understanding and grasping information. That in our world is the pros, because they spend so much time in it. They have athletic ability. They don't have potentially other responsibilities. That it puts us in different positions. And I just really think that we need to stop looking at it as, for even our own good, that just because you're a blue belt, you're going to beat the white belts and so on. Because if we can eliminate that, we can eliminate some of the bad mouthing that we do of ourselves when we get submitted by a lower belt. I've been submitted by white belts. I was fucking off. I was messing around with something and I was letting them play. And then I got to a position where I gambled too much and they got me. They got me. And not that I was a dick about it later, but then I immediately showed them a little bit of the business, not in a mean way, but just I want you to know that we're playing here. And I was letting you work, and then I made a clumsy error while making you work, and it went somewhere else. The same, like, I want us to just get away from that, because there's going to be days where me as a 45-year-old, some of my students legitimately get me. Like, it just happens. And what I end up doing is I throw them my belt at the end of class and I make a show of it because I want people to understand that element is just part of the game. There's going to be days when we're on, days where we're off, size difference, skill difference, age difference, strength difference. All of that plays in. And sometimes you zigged when you should have zagged and you get caught in a choke that's super deep. And it's not the end of the world. You don't like lose your position within the gym. You don't lose your position or your belt, or like, let's look at this from more of an academic standpoint. It is reflective of the path you're on and how much of an understanding of yourself and the curriculum, the sport you have. And if we can get there, then it starts to show a little bit, it starts to show up a little different. It doesn't, we don't look at it as weirdly as we do right now. Like, some people just want to do away with the belts altogether. Some people are like, no, the belts were super matter and they're really important. But sometimes we got to meet somewhere in the middle, not where we want to throw them away, not where we want to devalue them completely, but where we understand, much like the degrees that we get, that they are just reflective of the depth of knowledge that you have. It doesn't mean that you're more intelligent, like I said, than someone who's a few years behind. It doesn't mean that the person a few years ahead of you is more intelligent than you are. You're just on a specific path. And sometimes, especially for some of the coaches that are trying to gauge some of this, that path is specific to you. I've mentioned this, I had a student who, when I was teaching kids, who had a really hard problem being happy for her siblings. And because she was really unhappy with her siblings when they would get promoted, I held her back a little bit. I didn't promote her with them. I wanted to see how she handled it because I had noticed something. And it happened, and then it happened, I think, one more time, and I could be mixing up part of my story. It's been a long time. And I eventually pulled her aside and I said, hey, I want to see you happy for your teammates and your siblings. They're in the class with you, they're working hard, you're working hard. When they get promoted, I want you to be excited for them. They put in a lot of work. Because one day when you get promoted, you're going to get that same excitement and accolades from them, and they're going to be equally as happy. We have to be happy for our teammates when they get promoted. Sometimes we feel like we should have been promoted with them, sometimes ahead of them, and it just happens. So some time went on. I tested my theory again, and the next time she was great. And that showed me, okay, she's paying attention. She's doing the things interpersonally and within herself that show me, okay, not just the skill level, but the culture standard that I was trying to set. She's understanding that too. So now we're going to move on. Now here's the stripe or the belt or whatever we were doing. And some of that happens on the adult level too. Sometimes you might have someone who is kind of a mean training partner. They're not great at developing other people. They're not great at being a good training partner for the people around them, and they're just using their classmates as bodies. I'm not promoting that. So if I was to see that, I would have a conversation. Hey, these are people that are coming here trying to get better, just like you. You have to assist them so that they can get better and you get better. And if that person can't understand that, maybe you don't belong in the gym that I'm at. But I'm not promoting it. I'm not promoting bad behavior. I'm not promoting certain aspects of people. And the same goes for some of these other things. And I just look at these belts less about, per se, skill, and that's an element, but it's a bigger picture. And everyone grades differently. Everyone reviews the development of one person differently than another. And then you got ages and all this other stuff. So it's a hard thing to do. But most of all, regardless of whether we want to look at belts being in or out, my opinion is we should always have that continuing education mindset. Whether you are a white belt or you're a black belt or you're 10th planet and you don't have belts, or you do, or you're in wrestling or you're a pro and all you do is no-gi, you should have a continuing mindset regardless of what that scenario is. We should not get to black belt and then automatically feel like we know everything. I understand that with my 15 years in, I've learned a lot. I also understand I have the self-realization that there's a ton of shit I don't know either. There's a lot of like hidden details in the stuff that I do really well that I don't know. There's a lot of techniques out there that of positions that people come to me like, hey, I was doing this and squid guard and this, and I'm like, I don't know anything of what you're talking about. 45, I don't know what that is. So there's elements of a bunch of stuff that I need to learn. And if we can at least maintain the inquisitiveness and that desire to continue to learn, the belts aren't going to matter as much because we're always going to be driving to some destination down the road. We don't want to get to the black belt and just be like, I'm done. I understand everything. I know everything. I've mastered this. I understand the whole picture. It just doesn't happen. I don't care how good you are. It does not happen. I've rolled with some really good people. I've rolled with people who are far older than I am and got rolled up. I've rolled people who are far younger than I am, and pros who rolled me up. So I don't want us to ever feel like, oh no, I understand jiu-jitsu and I get it. You might be in a community that doesn't have a whole lot of black belts. You might be in a community that doesn't have a lot of pros, and your depth of knowledge of the gap between you and everyone else could be skewed. Being in San Diego, I run into a lot of different grapplers. Ran into one about a month or two ago who rolled me up completely. 30 seconds in, I knew I was in trouble. So be inquisitive, continue to try to find that education. Just because you've attained a degree or a master's, that black belt, that third degree on your black belt, whatever, doesn't mean you're done. So you just have to keep going, just keep understanding that there's stuff that you just do not get yet. I'm hoping this sheds some light on the topic. If you have any questions on this or anything else jiu-jitsu related, hit me up. dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. Additionally, we have a Patreon page that's up. There is a free element to that. I do share a couple of free techniques every once in a while, but it's going to be a tiered system for the video library that keeps growing. I'm recording that 3 days a week, roughly 6 to potentially 12 techniques a day or a week, sorry. And there's also direct coaching with me if you're interested in that. It's been a blast to do so far. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Until next time, thank you so much.